They're panicking, not because something bad is happening, but because something big is happening. And the people who understand it are already positioning themselves while the rest of the world is still scrolling, still doubting, still waiting for permission to believe 5 days. Silver moves $10, and suddenly the noise gets louder, the headlines get sharper, the experts start arguing, the institutions start adjusting, because when real money starts moving fast, it exposes who was prepared and who was pretending to be. Let me tell you something I learned early in my life. Every major financial breakthrough in history looked insane before it looked obvious. Bitcoin at $1, Tesla when everyone laughed, real estate when people said it was over, and now, once again, the same pattern is unfolding right in front of you. I remember sitting with a mentor years ago. A quiet man, not flashy, not loud, but wealthy in every sense of the word. He told me, when the crowd is calm, prepare. When the crowd is emotional, act. That sentence alone changed the trajectory of my life. Right now, the crowd is emotional, and the calm ones are building. The first truth is this: wealth is not built by reacting. It is built by positioning. The great investors don't chase price, they chase probability. They don't wait for permission, they wait for alignment. And when alignment appears, they move with discipline, not drama. Look at people like Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett, the quiet operators who saw opportunity long before the headlines. They studied cycles, they respected risk, they acted early. And when the world finally woke up, they were already years ahead. Your life works the same way. If you want extraordinary results, you must learn to move while others are comfortable staying still. Here's the shift. Start thinking in systems, not events. Silver didn't just jump. Years of currency printing, debt accumulation, geopolitical tension, and supply constraints slowly built pressure. Price is just the final echo of the real story. When you train your mind to see the invisible structure beneath the surface, money becomes less emotional and more mechanical. Fear fades, confidence grows, because you are no longer guessing, you are understanding. And that's where real power begins. The second truth: discipline compounds faster than talent. The most successful investors I've met were not the smartest in the room. They were the most consistent. They had rules, entry rules, exit rules, risk rules, life rules. They didn't let excitement override strategy. You don't need to predict the future. You need a process that survives the future. Start small if you must, but start now. Build habits of research, weekly reviews, position sizing, long-term vision, and protect your capital like it's your future, because it is third truth. Every financial transformation begins with identity. The moment you stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who builds, everything changes. Your decisions sharpen, your patience deepens, your standards rise. You don't chase money anymore. You construct a life that attracts it. That's what entrepreneurs, investors, leaders all have in common. They outgrow their old identity before their bank account ever changes. Now here's the action shift. This is where the future separates from the past. Study hard assets. Understand silver, gold, productive businesses, cash flow systems. Remove unnecessary debt. Increase your income streams. Invest consistently, not emotionally. Design a long-term plan and then protect it from short-term noise. Risk is not the enemy. Ignorance is. Every breakthrough you admire was born from someone choosing disciplined courage over comfortable fear. And when this current cycle fully reveals itself, when the dust settles and the new winners are visible, you don't want to be telling yourself, "I almost started." You want to be standing inside the result you once only imagined. This is your moment to think bigger, move smarter, and build something that lasts. Wealth is built by positioning early, not by reacting late. And the difference between the two is the difference between living in control of your future and spending your life chasing what has already passed you by. Every major opportunity that has ever changed the world was visible long before it became popular, but only to those who were paying attention with patience, not emotion. The ones who win in the long run are rarely the loudest, the fastest, or the most confident in public. They are the quiet observers who study patterns, prepare when no one is watching, and move before the noise begins. They understand that waiting for certainty is the most expensive mistake anyone can make, because certainty only appears after the reward has already been claimed. Think about the people who bought land when others saw empty fields, who invested in technology when it looked like a toy, who started businesses when their friends were chasing comfort. They were not lucky, they were positioned. They stood at the edge of what was coming and placed themselves there before the wave arrived. When the world finally noticed, it looked like magic, but it was actually discipline, foresight, and the courage to act without applause. Positioning early means training your mind to recognize value before it is obvious, and having the emotional strength to commit before the crowd validates your decision. Most people spend their lives reacting. They wait for headlines, trends, approval, permission, and proof. By the time all of that arrives, The door has already closed, or the price of entry has multiplied. Reacting late feels safe in the moment, but it quietly steals your future because you are always buying after the growth has already happened. Positioning early feels uncomfortable because it requires thinking independently, trusting your research, and accepting that for a while you will walk alone. This principle applies far beyond money. In health, relationships, career, mindset, and leadership, those who position early build momentum while others are still debating. They learn skills before they are required, develop discipline before life demands it, build networks before they need favors, and strengthen their mindset before the storms arrive. When pressure comes, they are not scrambling. They are already standing on solid ground. To position early, you must slow your reactions and sharpen your vision. Study cycles, human behavior, history, and incentives. Ask where the world is moving, not where it has already been. Invest in yourself before the return is visible. Plant seeds when the ground looks empty. The future always rewards the builders who move quietly, consistently, and long before the applause begins. If this message resonated with you, if you feel that internal shift beginning, then you already know what to do. Like this video, subscribe to this channel and share this with someone who's ready to rise with you. Because the next chapter of your life doesn't begin with luck. It begins with decision. When the crowd becomes emotional, the disciplined investor becomes dangerous, because emotion is the moment when most people surrender control of their decisions, and discipline is the moment when a few take it back. Financial history is not written by those who panic with the masses. It is shaped by those who stay calm when others are overwhelmed by fear or excitement. The market is not just numbers on a screen. It is a living reflection of human psychology, and whenever emotions rise, opportunities are being created for those who have trained themselves to remain steady. Every cycle follows the same pattern. First comes optimism, then excitement, then euphoria. After that comes fear, confusion, panic, and exhaustion. The crowd rides every stage of this emotional roller coaster, buying when confidence is high and selling when fear takes over. The disciplined investor watches this behavior with patience and preparation. They understand that extreme emotion signals extreme opportunity. When everyone feels safe, caution is required. When everyone feels afraid, courage becomes valuable. Look at the investors who built lasting wealth through crises. During market crashes, recessions, and global uncertainty, while headlines screamed disaster, disciplined minds quietly studied balance sheets. Long-term demand, real value, and future growth. They were not reckless, they were prepared. They had rules, risk management, and long-term vision already in place long before the storm arrived. So when the crowd lost its footing, they moved with precision. This is not just about markets, it is about life. In moments of chaos, most people look for comfort, guidance, and someone else to tell them what to do. The disciplined individual already knows their principles, their process, and their purpose. They do not chase reactions, they execute plans. When others hesitate, they step forward. When others freeze, they remain fluid. When others surrender to pressure, they turn pressure into clarity. Discipline is not something you suddenly find in crisis. It is something you build quietly over time. It is created in routines, research, patience, consistency, and the willingness to delay gratification. It is the habit of acting on logic when emotion tries to take control. Over time, this habit becomes a powerful advantage because emotional people will always create openings for disciplined people. The world will never stop producing moments of fear and excitement. News cycles will continue to amplify emotion. Social media will continue to magnify panic and hype. In every one of these moments, the disciplined investor has a choice. Follow the noise and remain average, or stay calm, trust the process, and quietly step into the space where others are too distracted to stand. Every financial breakthrough looks impossible before it becomes obvious, and the single truth explains why so many people miss the greatest opportunities of their lifetime. Before the results appear, before the charts rise, before the headlines change, the idea always feels uncomfortable, uncertain, even foolish. The human mind is wired to protect what is familiar, so when something new challenges the current story of the world, the first reaction is resistance. That resistance is the invisible wall that separates those who participate in breakthroughs from those who only watch them happen. Look at every major innovation, every wealth creation moment, every shift that reshaped industries. There was always a period where believers were laughed at, doubted, and dismissed. The internet was once considered a passing trend. Smartphones were mocked as unnecessary toys. Digital payments were seen as unsafe and unrealistic. Even simple ideas like online education or remote work were treated as fringe concepts before becoming normal parts of everyday life. In every case, the opportunity existed long before the acceptance arrived. Those who recognized the potential early were not operating on certainty, they were operating on vision. The same pattern appears in personal finance and investing. Before an asset rises, before a business scales, before a market transforms, the data always looks unclear, the opinions are divided, and the outcome feels risky. People wait for confirmation because confirmation feels safe. But confirmation is expensive. By the time the world agrees the growth phase is already in motion and the greatest returns are already behind those who acted first. The breakthrough no longer looks impossible, it looks obvious, and people wonder how they missed it. The difference between those who build extraordinary wealth and those who remain stuck is not intelligence, access, or luck. It is the ability to move forward when the path is not fully visible. Breakthrough thinkers learn to tolerate uncertainty. They train themselves to separate temporary discomfort from long-term potential. They understand that doubt is not a warning sign. It is often a signal that something meaningful is being challenged inside their perspective. This principle applies far beyond money. Career growth, business success, creative achievement, and personal transformation all follow the same structure. The new identity always feels unnatural before it becomes normal. The new standard always feels unreachable before it becomes routine. Growth feels impossible right up until the moment it becomes obvious. The people who change their lives are the ones who step into the unknown, while everyone else is still debating whether it makes sense, trusting that clarity is built through movement, not waiting. Systems and strategy outperform predictions and hype, because the future does not reward those who guess, it rewards those who prepare. Most people spend their lives trying to predict outcomes, chasing trends, listening to noise, and reacting to every new piece of information as if it were a final answer. This creates exhaustion, confusion, and inconsistent results. The people who quietly build extraordinary success think differently. They do not try to outsmart the world with forecasts. They design systems that work regardless of what the world decides to do. A system is a repeatable process that produces results over time. Strategy is the long-term direction that guides every decision within that system. Together, they create stability in environments that are constantly changing. While others are jumping from idea to idea, the disciplined builder is refining routines, tracking performance, managing risk, and adjusting methodically. When the hype fades and the headlines change, the system continues to operate. Look at the most successful investors and business leaders. They are not known for dramatic predictions. They are known for consistency. They follow structured rules for entering markets, exiting positions, allocating capital, controlling losses, and protecting long-term growth. They do not allow excitement to dictate action or fear to force decisions. They trust their frameworks because those frameworks were built with intention, tested over time, and strengthened through experience. Hype is emotional. It creates urgency without understanding. It promises speed without foundation. It attracts attention but rarely produces lasting results. Strategy is patient. It accepts short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term progress. It removes emotion from decision-making and replaces it with clarity. When someone operates from strategy, they do not need to be right about the future. They only need to be disciplined about their process. This mindset extends beyond finance. In health, careers, relationships, and personal development, systems always outperform motivation. Motivation rises and falls. Systems remain. When you create habits for learning, working, saving, investing, improving, and reflecting, you remove the need to rely on temporary emotional energy. Your life begins to compound quietly, day after day, regardless of mood or circumstance. Strategy gives direction to effort. Systems give consistency to action. Together, they transform chaos into progress. Instead of chasing the next big thing, you build something solid. Instead of reacting to every change, you adjust calmly. Over time, this approach separates those who experience occasional wins from those who create lasting success, because while the world remains obsessed with what might happen next, the disciplined builder is focused on executing what always works. Discipline compounds faster than intelligence or talent, because success is not created by what you know. It is created by what you do consistently. Many people are gifted, educated, and full of potential, but potential alone does not build results. What builds results is the quiet decision to show up every day, even when no one is watching, even when the excitement fades, even when progress feels slow. Over time, this steady commitment creates a powerful momentum that no burst of talent can replace. Intelligence can open doors, but discipline is what keeps you moving forward after the door closes behind you. Talent may attract attention, but discipline builds the structure that turns attention into achievement. The most successful individuals in any field are not always the most brilliant or the most naturally gifted, but they are the most reliable. They train when they are tired. They study when others are resting. They work when motivation is low. This repeated action compounds into mastery. Think of athletes, entrepreneurs, investors, artists, and leaders who built long-term success. Their defining trait is not genius, it is routine. They protect their habits. They respect their schedule. They eliminate excuses. They understand that small actions performed with consistency eventually create results that appear extraordinary to the outside world. What looks like overnight success is often the product of years of disciplined repetition. Discipline also builds confidence. When you keep your promises to yourself, you begin to trust your own ability to execute. This trust becomes the foundation for greater risk, bigger goals, and stronger decisions. Each disciplined action becomes evidence that you are capable of growth. Over time, this inner belief becomes unshakable because it is supported by experience, not wishful thinking. In financial life, discipline is what separates those who build wealth from those who chase it. It is the discipline to save when spending feels easier, to invest when waiting feels safer, to study when guessing feels faster, to hold long-term when short-term emotions try to take control. Markets reward patience. Businesses reward consistency. Life rewards those who remain committed long after the excitement disappears. Discipline compounds because each small act strengthens the next one. One good habit makes the next easier. One focused decision sharpens the next. Slowly, without noise or drama, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. When that shift happens, your results begin to reflect it. Over time, the person with discipline will surpass the person with talent, not because they are smarter, but because they are unstoppable in their consistency. Identity shift always comes before income shift, because the way you see yourself quietly controls the ceiling of your life. Long before the bank account changes, the mindset changes. Long before the external results improve, the internal standards rise. Most people try to upgrade their circumstances without upgrading their identity, and that is why progress feels temporary. You can earn money, find opportunity, and experience success, but if your self-image remains the same, your life will eventually return to the level of that identity. The most powerful transformations always begin internally. A person does not suddenly become disciplined, confident, or successful because money arrives. Money arrives because they have already become disciplined, confident, and intentional in their behavior. The entrepreneur who builds a thriving company first becomes someone who solves problems, manages pressure, and leads with clarity. The investor who builds wealth first becomes someone who studies, waits, and acts with patience. The leader who influences others first becomes someone who takes responsibility for their own actions. This shift is often invisible to the outside world. It happens in private decisions. It shows in what you tolerate, what you pursue, what you refuse to accept, and what you choose to improve. The moment you decide that your life will no longer be ruled by excuses, comfort, or fear, your identity begins to change. Your daily actions follow that new standard. Your income eventually catches up. Many people stay trapped because they still see themselves as someone who reacts instead of builds, hopes instead of plans, survives instead of grows. Changing identity means rewriting the internal story. You stop saying, "This is just how I am," and start asking, "Who do I need to become?" That question alone has the power to reshape every decision you make. When identity changes, discipline becomes natural. Learning becomes automatic. Growth becomes inevitable. You no longer need external motivation because your behavior is now aligned with who you believe you are. You do not chase success. You act in alignment with your standards. This is why true financial growth is always delayed. The mind evolves first, the habits follow, the skills develop, the network expands, the opportunities appear, and only then does the income rise. When people try to reverse this order, they experience stress, inconsistency, and burnout. But when they respect the sequence, everything begins to compound. The world eventually pays you in proportion to the person you become. Raise the level of your identity and your life will follow. The moment you commit to becoming the builder of your future instead of the observer of it, the entire direction of your story begins to shift. Risk is not the enemy, ignorance is, because every meaningful reward in life requires movement into uncertainty. But that uncertainty only becomes dangerous when you refuse to understand it. Most people do not actually fear risk, they fear what they do not understand. They avoid investing, building, starting, or changing, not because the opportunity is too dangerous, but because they have not taken the time to study the terrain. Knowledge turns fear into strategy. Preparation transforms uncertainty into calculated action. Every successful investor, entrepreneur, and leader learns this early. They do not eliminate risk, they manage it. They research before they commit. They gather information, analyze outcomes, test small, and scale with confidence. They accept that mistakes are part of growth, but they refuse to move blindly. This is the difference between reckless behavior and intelligent risk-taking. Recklessness ignores reality. Discipline respects it. In financial life, ignorance is extremely expensive. Not understanding markets, interest, debt, inflation, or long-term trends causes people to make emotional decisions that cost them years of progress. They chase returns without understanding risk. They follow hype without understanding value. They avoid opportunity without understanding potential. Over time, this confusion compounds into lost wealth, missed growth, and deep frustration. The same pattern appears in personal development. People avoid starting businesses because they fear failure, but they never study what causes businesses to fail. They avoid investing because they fear losing money, but they never study how money actually grows. They avoid leadership because they fear responsibility, but they never study how influence is built. In each case, the real obstacle is not the risk, it is the lack of understanding. When you commit to learning, everything changes. You begin to see patterns instead of chaos. You start to recognize opportunity inside situations that once felt threatening. You develop the ability to act while others freeze. This is the moment where confidence replaces anxiety, not because the future is guaranteed, but because you are prepared to navigate it. Intelligent risk is the engine of growth. Every new level of life requires stepping beyond what is comfortable. The people who create extraordinary results are not fearless, they are informed. They respect danger, but they do not let it control their decisions. They move carefully, but they move forward. Waiting feels safe because it avoids immediate risk, but it quietly multiplies long-term regret. Building feels uncomfortable because it exposes uncertainty, but it produces growth, clarity, and strength. The person who waits collects reasons. The person who builds collects results. When you shift into builder mode, your identity changes. You stop consuming life and start creating it. You no longer ask for permission. You ask better questions. You stop looking for approval and start building proof. The world responds differently to builders. Opportunities begin to appear because action creates visibility, credibility, and trust. This applies to business, investing, career, health, and personal growth. The gym does not get easier before you start training. The market does not become clear before you start learning. Confidence does not arrive before you take action. All of these are built through motion. Every day you choose action over delay, you strengthen the person you are becoming. Progress is not about giant leaps. It is about consistent construction. Small decisions repeated daily change the entire direction of a life. When you commit to building, even slowly, you enter a different category of people. You become someone who shapes outcomes instead of reacting to them. The moment you stop waiting for the future and start constructing it with intention, your world begins to reorganize around your effort, and the life you once imagined slowly becomes the life you are living.